Wait a minute, that's not right.
We have 3 matches to help to determine new #1 contenders. Cody Rhodes picks a friend for his next foe, and Roman Reigns' lust for the Ulafala makes him turn on his own bloodline. Okay, in the news! And the news indeed, we are back for a SmackDown recap from Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was the SmackDown after SummerSlam, so there was a lot to talk about, but on this show we care most about the matches. So let's start with our match of the night, and one that had some pretty big stakes. It was for the #1 contender to LA Knight's new United States Championship. And we saw Andrade take on Santos Escobar in a really good match. And it was pretty even throughout most of the match, but early on we saw Angel grab Andrade's legs off of the apron, and then Berto landed a super kick on him. So fortunately, Cruz and Corbin came out to even the odds, and they were able to take Angel and Berto away from ringside. But from there, Andrade took advantage and landed a powerbomb, a moonsault, and a poison rana off of the top ropes. Really some impressive offense by him. But Andrade's recent nemesis, Carmelo Hayes, could not refrain from getting involved and tried to distract Andrade, which he did. However, he paid for it as Andrade knocked him off of the apron. Well, Andrade then was distracted by Elektra, and she distracted the ref as well. So when Andrade went for a double knees, Hayes was able to push Escobar away from him and rolled up Andrade to get the win and to become the #1 contender for the US title. For Escobar, he's now won 2 one-on-one matches in a row and goes to 7-3. So when he faces Knight, we'll see whether he gets to say Escobar C, or if LA Knight will get to say I hit it and quit it, which he brought up for the first time rather strangely tonight. Nonetheless, that should be a pretty good match for the US title. For Andrade, this amazingly is his first loss since returning, and he is now 6-1 in one-on-one matches, but I feel like he'll probably want to go after Carmelo Hayes yet again. We also had 2 important tag matches as they were #1 contender qualifying matches. The first one being A-Town Down Under versus the Street Profits, and A-Town Down Under looked to continue with some momentum that they regained by beating the Awesome Truth on Raw, and they're suddenly fighting nearly every week with their 5th match since the beginning of July when they lost their titles. But it was more of the same out of them as Waller grabbed Ford's feet off of the apron, but Ford was able to super kick Waller, and Dawkins then tackled him over the barricade. At that point, the Street Profits were able to get the best of Theory and hit a blockbuster off the top rope to get the win and move on to the #1 contender match. For the Street Profits, they've put together 2 straight traditional tag wins and go to 3-4. For A-Town Down Under, they have had those 5 matches, but they've not been very successful with them, falling to 1-4 in those matches, and are now just 4-6 in all traditional tags. A-Town Down Under then went into Nick Aldis's office to complain, and when Theory brought up the idea of Waller versus Kevin Owens, Aldis immediately granted that match for next week. In the other #1 contender qualifying match, we then saw DIY take on Pretty Deadly. Well, Pretty Deadly actually played some pretty good defense early on and even managed to break up a shatter machine and hit an assisted bulldog off the top rope. However, DIY was just too good by landing that shatter machine later on and meeting in the middle to get the win and to advance to face the Street Profits to become potential #1 contender. For DIY, they've actually won 4 out of their last 5 traditional tag matches and go to 6-4-1 on the year. For Pretty Deadly, they're 0-3 in all tag matches since the beginning of July and are just 1-5 in all traditional tags. Lastly, we did have a quick one-on-one match between Jade Cargill and Alba Fire, and Fire admittedly hit a nice tornado DDT and locked in a nice submission, but Jade, of course, was just too powerful, and she hit a super kick and a Jaded to quickly pick up the win. But of course, Blair Davenport continued to wreak some havoc by immediately attacking Jade from behind after the match, and Fire and Dawn teamed up with her to take out both of them until Naomi came to the rescue and all three of them were able to clear the ring. For the match itself, this was Jade's first one-on-one match since May, but she does go to 3-1 in those matches. As for Fire, this was her first one-on-one match since February, but that makes her 0-2 in one-on-one matches. So with that, let's go beyond the mat for SmackDown. Giovanni Vinci actually had a vignette showing him skiing in the Italian Alps, and he had a little bit of a new look. So good for him should he decide to actually come back. Backstage, we saw Tiffy prepping for Nia's championship celebration, but after a little bit of a back and forth, she decided that she'd be better off doing it on her own. And Chelsea and Piper came up to Tiffy, saying that they saw through her and this was just a ploy for her to get the Women's Championship. And we had Cody Rhodes kicking off the show when he said he wanted to name a new #1 contender to face him at Bash in Berlin, but Solo Sikoa with Tonga and Loa then came out with Sikoa saying that he should be the champion right now if it weren't for Roman Reigns, and he demanded a rematch against Rhodes. However, Rhodes called him delusional for doing so, and the Bloodline came to the ring to take out Rhodes, but fortunately, Kevin Owens came to the rescue, grabbing 2 steel chairs so that they could fend off the Bloodline. But Sikoa decided that it would be better off for them to back away and said that he would deal with Rhodes after he dealt with Reigns. As for Rhodes, he then told KO to come back into the ring and he wanted to name him as the #1 contender. To which KO said that he politely was declining and that his record was not good enough in order to be #1 contender. Which, you've come to the right show if you want to know that record. He is 3-2 in one-on-one matches in 2024, but just 3-6 in all singles matches. So certainly that does not look like a person who should be the #1 contender for the undisputed WWE Championship. But, as we say every month, this is still good enough to be a contender for the US title, so maybe he should try for that instead. Well, Rhodes wouldn't take no for an answer, so he went and spoke to Aldis in his office with KO there as well. And Aldis said he was actually going to speak to Roman Reigns about becoming the #1 contender when KO spit some true facts, saying how many times did people have Reigns beat during that title reign, and that the rematch clause has not been enforced in years. And lastly, to go into the men's locker room and just open the door and you would see plenty of other more deserving #1 contenders than Roman Reigns. So true, KO, so true. What can we say? That was really well done. Nonetheless, Aldis then looked at KO and said that he found his #1 contender right there, and so KO had to accept so that it wouldn't be Roman Reigns. So we will see Owens take on Rhodes at Bash in Berlin. But speaking of Reigns, let's go back to Solo Sikoa calling out Reigns in the middle of the ring, saying that if Reigns wanted to be Tribal Chief, he would have to go and take it from him. Well, Reigns did appear at that moment and started going to the ring when Sikoa had Tama Tonga first go after Reigns, but Reigns disposed of him and then did the same with Tonga Loa, including hitting both men with the steel steps. So Reigns went into the ring and immediately landed a Superman punch on Sikoa, and when he lined up for a spear, Fortunately for Sikoa, Loa was able to pull him out of the way. With no one in the ring, however, the Ulafala of the tribal chief was just sitting in the ring. So Reigns saw it laying there, picked it up and grabbed it and looked at it with it in his hands when Tama Tonga came back into the ring and attacked him from behind. But Reigns was able to turn the tide and hit Superman punches on both Loa and Tonga, and then hit a spear on Loa in the middle of the ring and another spear through the barricade at ringside on Tonga. Reigns then grabbed a steel chair and went back into the ring, hitting Loa 12 times with the steel chair as Sikoa looked on from the ramp, saying that he was the tribal chief. Well, Roman, this opens up some more questions about your actions, or rather inactions, over the last 4 months. First off, this Ulafala as the symbol of being the tribal chief. We've got to talk about that right now. So there are only 2 options here as I see it. One, after you lost at WrestleMania, you personally handed it, or I guess sent it by mail, to Solo so that he would be the tribal chief. I mean, if this is really the one and only Ulafala of your tribe, then you had to gift it to him to begin with. So what's going on here, sir? Why would you be so mad about him having that Ulafala at this point? Certainly you needed to take a break, so Sikoa, as your tribal heir, is the rightful holder of the Ulafala, and really, you should just be able to have a very nice conversation with Solo if you indeed want to take it back. So I think your actions here are proving to be even worse than expected. I had thought maybe there could be more than one Ulafala, but it really seems like this particular Ulafala means the world to you. So if you want to go get it, you should probably just have a very nice conversation with it and talk about the legacy of it and how well and how proud you held it over these last 4 years, which of course is a complete lie and garbage, but you could at least say it. But nonetheless, I think you've taken the complete wrong approach to this if that were the case. Now, the other option is that after WrestleMania, you were just so disappointed and so sad that you just left it there without wanting it or even thinking about it, and it was just kind of there and someone from WWE picked it up. So in that case, that's almost even worse because you were then neglecting your duties as the tribal chief to your tribe. So you always say that you've got to put the food on the table for your family, but you're just shirking your duties. So it was completely up to Sikoa to fill that void that you just left go while you were sitting on the couch pouting for 4 straight months. So again, if this were the route that you took, that's just pretty bad, and there were a lot of people depending on you, but Solo heroically picked up the mantle. And if you didn't like Solo's tactics, like we said yesterday, well, you had all of that time, over 4 whole months, to do something about it, but you did absolutely nothing. Instead, just as Solo's going to win that championship, along with the tag titles that the Bloodline already holds, you take it out on him and cost him that victory. Just truly despicable behavior, keeping that food off of the Bloodline's table. Just terrible. You really are a disgrace to the Bloodline. And with that, let's go to STFs. In tonight's STFs, we start with the Bloodline edition, but wait, I guess there is no Bloodline edition, as these were just men that were all looking for a fight and they got it. So no fines there. It was otherwise a light night for the STFs, so we have Blair Davenport attacking Jade Cargill from behind after Jade's victory, and Fire and Dawn joined in to attack Jade and Bianca, so the three of them will pick up fines. And in the #1 contender match for the United States title, we had Angel and Berto tag teaming up against Andrade when Angel grabbed Andrade's legs off of the apron and Berto delivered a super kick. So for that, both of them will get a fine. But that was not all. When Elektra distracted the ref and then Hayes pushed Escobar out of the way as Andrade went for the double knees, that immediately caused Escobar to be able to roll up Andrade for the pin. So this will have to get an upgrade from a fine to a 1-week suspension for both Elektra and for Hayes. Kevin Owens and Santos Escobar are set as the #1 contenders for the undisputed WWE Championship and the United States Championship, while the Street Profits and DIY will battle to do the same for the WWE Tag Team Championships. And Roman Reigns' desire for the Ulafala exposes him for the fraud that he is. I'm Dr. O'Kay reporting on the WWE, where everything is okay.